I'm your host for today. I'm Ellie. So today, I would actually like to talk about the relation between the types of text and the methods used in translation. But before that, we actually have an issue in the previous episode, and I would like to invite the guests back into the show to discuss, to actually reach a consensus. But before that, do you have a video of the previous episode?
I think the best way to translate a cultural text is actually cultural approaches by Newmark.
Cultural approaches? For travel text, are you out of your mind? Nord, functional approach, Scopus!
Now you are the crazy boy.
Boy? You call me boy? I think you should listen to me. I'm going to teach you all the translation. Hey, you do that.
Yeah, so that is what happened in the previous episode. They couldn't reach a consensus about the best methods to use in the types of text to translate. But before that, I would actually like to introduce our guest for today. So the first one is Miss Something Wrong just divorced. Okay, so she has a Bachelor of Arts in Translation with Interpretation, and she has a translation experience of about 3 years, so still a bit of a novice. And then our second guest for today is actually such a long name, I'll just call him Mr. Summons. He has a degree in engineering and law, but he is not practicing law as a lawyer, but just have the degree. So he's actually been doing translation for about, I'm sorry, that's a mistake, it's actually 10 years. Oh, 2 years?
Yeah.
Gosh, okay. So, without further ado, I would like to invite Miss Something Wrong and Mr. Summers! Thank you so much for willing to come back to Showtime with Ellie.
Thank you for inviting us back,
Yeah,
and thank you, Jabbar, for not filing a report against me.
Yes.
I hope you don't fight this time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, I would like to thank you for coming. Okay, so today's topic is actually the same as the previous episode, which is the relation between types of text and the methods of translation. But before we move on further into today's discussion, I would actually like to recap back what happened in the previous episode. So you guys suddenly blow up when we started discussing about the best method of translation. So actually, what was the problem? Because we were actually talking about travel text, and we were discussing about the phrase on how to translate a blue joss smoke.
Yeah, actually the text is written by Lonely Planet itself, but I'm not sure if the writer is a foreigner or local in Ignite. But then blue joystick in the text, it refers to cultural element. Now what is cultural element? It's actually something that is not man-made. And blue joystick, it doesn't refer to the joss that is blue or the smoke that is blue. It refers to the Chinese culture, where when we pray, we actually light up the joystick, and when you light up the joystick, the fire is hot. And we all know that the blue flame is hotter than orange flame.
Oh, so actually the blue joss smoke in the text actually refers to the fire and not the incense or the smoke. So this is actually quite confusing, isn't it?
The thing is, though, the reason that we had to fight originally is because that she wants to highlight the cultural elements in the text instead of translating the function of the text. Now, when you see the function of the travel text is basically, it's appealative. It's to appeal to the readers to go to certain places, am I correct? Right. So when you are translating texts that are appellative in nature, right, you should be focusing on the function of the text itself by using several methods. Now, the method of translation that I suggested was that you use either literal or functional. It has to be functional. It has to be by scopus. Theory is scopus theory.
So you're saying that the cultural content in the travel text is not a priority?
But for me, the cultural content in the text itself is the one that appeals to the readers that they want to come to Penang, because it symbolizes the rich Chinese culture in Penang. Why do you want to come and visit Penang? It's because of the culture. We are rich in culture, it's pretty. This is why you come to Penang.
Right. So maybe I can. Fine. I agree with her on that point. I'll agree with her that the function of a text is as important as the culture as well.
But some of the points I do agree regarding the blue jaw smoke, because if you say blue jaw smoke, I wouldn't even thought of fire, So maybe this is something that either you can.
Because it's smoke.
Yeah, I think the mental image is hard for readers who are not familiar with the Chinese culture. I mean, for ourselves, if we live in Malaysia but we're not Chinese, you didn't know that Chinese people are using joystick. You won't have that mental image that's like blue jaw smoke, you know what it means.
Right.
So I think cultural elements, you translated it and you keep the function.
Basically, you just need a balance.
Yeah.
Oh, so this it? Did you guys just reach a consensus?
Yeah, no, that's not
Oh, okay, thank God. Okay, so let's move on to today's discussion. Okay, now, well, it's actually still the same topic, but
I'm sorry.
okay, so why don't we talk about audiovisual text? Yes, audiovisual text, because audiovisual text like subtitles, yes, you can't really fit the whole thing in the screen, like when you watch K-dramas and so on, you don't want to actually read long sentences. So what do you think about that? How do you translate that?
As we can see on the slide itself, there's a few guides listed, and I took the guides from this book. It's written in Malay, but of course I translated it because I'm translator. Okay, so I think the most important from the guides, I feel that to create a good subtitles, we have to keep the language short and simple so that it's not too burdensome for viewers to understand what's going on in that scene. Yeah.
So is that like colloquial or something like that, right?
Maybe to explain better, I pick an example. So can we have
아이들이 하는 말, 숨긴 말, 또 거짓말까지 척척 알아듣는 선생님.
So this is a scene from the first episode, and it's talking about the actress in this scene. She wants to be a teacher when she graduates. And as we can see, the English translation and the Malay translation, they are not quite the same because they use kids, the word kids in the English translation, but in terms of Malay translation, it's pelajar. But according to the source language, which is Korean, it says ade. Ade means kids. But I think the translators, they use the word pelajar to be more specific because she says she wants to be a teacher when she grew up.
Oh, they focus more on the content, and then the English translation, it just follows what the source text says, which is the ada for kids. For kids. Sorry, I can't speak Korean. It's okay.
So all is fine and dandy, but what method of translation is used for this type of translations? I mean, it's different, right? Different texts have different methods of translation.
Yeah, but I think the best way to describe the text is free translation, because as you can see, it doesn't really follow the grammatical structure. Because in terms of Malay language, we don't use apa when the sentence doesn't end with a question mark. And actually, in the Malay subtitles, they actually cut the subtitle according to the scene. The second picture, sembunyikan is in one scene, and dan apa yang mereka tipu in another scene. I think why they cut the words is because you can't have too many words in a scene because it's burdening the viewers. I mean, you do not want to read what's going on in the scene. You are watching a K-drama.
So like colloquial, when you're translating. Basically, when you're translating subtitles, what I'm getting from this is because I have no knowledge in this field. is that you're translating the dialogue that has been spoken in the film, right? So you don't actually, let's say, the cues for the actor. Okay, the actor is feeling sad. You don't actually translate that, right? So just the dialogues only.
I'm sorry. I think because this is you can see what's going on, so I don't think you need to say this actress is feeling sad. No.
But wouldn't it be like more
Have you watched
descriptive?
TV before?
No, I'm just saying. Like, you should go to KBS and say maybe before the actors start speaking, actor's sad, and then maybe we can understand. Oh, she's sad.
But this is like a script, you know, like for musical actors, they show you a script. Okay, you're supposed to feel sad, you're supposed to look sad. But then I think the most important thing in doing subtitles, a successful subtitle, you have to consider three things. The first thing is the emotion from the actor or actress, and also the tone, and also the mood of the scene. So as we can see, she's actually being interviewed, and you only have to translate what's in the dialogue because it's clearly shown by her, because her acting is good. So you don't have to elaborate more on her acting, you just have to focus on what she's saying.
Right, you need to read the non-verbal emotions inside. Plus, I like just now you say this method of translating is free translation. But for me personally, I think there's nothing much change here except for the word pelajar. So is it free translation?
Yeah. Is it free translation? I was thinking it could be more like sort of a mixture between literal and adaptation.
Yeah, it's a bit of a literal. The only difference is pelajar.
Yeah, maybe. It's not actually literal, because if it would be literal, it would be one, and then the translation would be satu sesiapa memahami apa kanak-kanak siap kata.
To make a good subtitle, you have to take into account the spelling of the words and also the word count. Like certain words they have the same meaning, but when doing subtitles, we will actually pick the word with less alphabets, so that when it appears on the screen, it doesn't burden the viewers.
I see.
I mean, you do not want to look at a scene which the words, the subtitles, fill up almost half of the screen. It's horrible.
Okay. But we're talking about colloquial, right? If it's I'm taking your time, yeah. But if it's a dialogue, right? If it's a dialogue, it's saying that we're talking, right? We're talking to each other, right? And why isn't it translated into a more like casual saying? This is not casual. Look at this. Seseorang nggak paham apa pelajar kata.
You mean
sembunyikan? Yeah.
So you're saying that, let's say they want to translate it, majority of the readers that they aim for is like, let's say, Sabahans.
Yeah.
So you're saying the translation should follow exactly as a Sabahan slang should be?
It should. Why should it not be? I mean, if that's the target audience, then why not? I mean, if we translate books for children, we have a different way of translating it. We have a different method for it. So why can't we do that for this one?
But as I said just now, in the scene itself, she's being interviewed. So when you are being interviewed, you actually speak like this.
Plus this is international, so it's able
she's being interviewed.
Public viewers, sorry.
She's being interviewed.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't know
Yeah.
Okay, I think we could use a little bit of a relaxing time. Why don't we play an advertisement?
Thank you, God.
This show is sponsored by Coca-Cola.
I would like to thank you, Coca-Cola, for sponsoring today's show. Thank you very much. Now, moving on. So we've discussed about audiovisual text, travel text. What about technical text? I'm sorry, supara technical. What was the translation for it?
Semi.
Semi, whichever. Okay. So,
Who said semi?
so, Mr. Summons,
Yes.
you have a degree in law and engineering, but you don't practice as a lawyer.
No.
So you've been doing translation for about 2 years?
2 years.
Yes. So, what kind of translation text do you usually use? I mean, we specifically want to talk about semi, whatever. Technical text, because you are here today.
Right. Well, the thing is that
Sorry, it's Miss Ellie.
oh, Miss Ellie, I'm sorry. Something wrong.
Yeah, Miss something wrong.
Sorry. Okay. For semi-technical text, let me ask you this though. Do you know the difference between technical text and semi-technical text?
No, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Well, to make it easier to understand, semi-technical texts are basically texts that are instructions or manuals or etc. all in those types of texts. And how we translate it is very different to how we translate regular text. I mean, in general, technical and semi-technical texts require a more specialized translator to translate, especially.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by more specialized? You mean like the translator has to be, great at what
Yes.
certain fields, like.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Oh,
he has to have an in-depth. Has to have an in-depth knowledge in the field to what he is translating, especially in technical text. But let's talk about semi-technical text. I believe you brought your own example for a text.
Yeah. Oh yes. You informed me earlier that she actually did an alternative translation for fire extinguisher. But before that, let's look at the original.
For the fire extinguisher or for the manual, for the instruction?
I'm sorry, manual. You want to be the host for today?
No, it's the fire extinguisher. Okay.
Yes, so this is the original one.
Okay. God damn, what is that? Okay.
Language. So as we can see, APAR is actually the brand of the fire extinguisher, and we have pictures. We have pictures at the side just in case people don't have time to read or maybe they are just lazy. So this side, this is the original, the source text and also the target text. I won't talk much about it because you all can read. And then I want to specific on the last one, sweep side to side. But in the Malay translation, I find it funny because it's sapukan dari sisi ke sisi. I mean, I know sweep, when you say sweep the floor, it's actually sapu lantai. But then sweep side to side, sapukan dari sisi ke sisi. It's a bit odd, isn't it?
That's where I come in. Sorry, that's where I come in, okay? Let's not focus on the previous one. Let's focus on the fourth one. Sweep side to side. Now, when you say sweep in English, what is the motion of sweeping? Can anyone show me the motion? Yes. Now look at the image next to you. How is he holding the nozzle? Like this, right? Right. Let's say now we translate it into Malay. It will be sapukan. What is the motion for sapukan? The same motion as sweep, right? But if we translate sweep as in to menghayunkan, you say menghayunkan, right? It'd be different, wouldn't it? It would be like this, right?
Oh, so the sweeping motion, sorry. So the word sweep and sapukan actually refers to the motion,
Yes.
and not the literal sweeping at home.
Yes, this is because semi-technical texts, when you are translating them, you have to make sure that all the valuable informations are translated. Therefore, we use literal translation. This is why when you see instruction manuals, they're so short and simple, especially when it's on a fire extinguisher, when it's only used during emergencies. Now, you don't have times with tolong, tarik, kunci, you don't know, you don't have time for that. See, that's why I said tarik, kunci, pengaman, pull the pin, with images in case some of you can't read. This, right? So nice and simple, and it's to get the information across quickly and as efficiently as possible. We don't mind regarding the grammar or anything about that. Just make sure that the information is there. That's the function of the text.
What I find interesting about this is that if you look at the from the first to the fourth instruction, it kind of feels like Malay language is the source text itself, because it's like the English translation is following the Malay grammatical structure. Now, this is just something that I've noticed because, like was mentioned as by Miss Atika Zabri yesterday in class, she said that in English language is considered as a higher status. Yeah. So when people translate text that has English as the source language, they tend to follow the English grammatical structure. But here it's as if the English is following the Malay grammatical structure, because you see tarik kunci, pupil. And you see arahkan ke dasar api, aim and base or fire, tegang, squeeze, handle. So this is interesting. I think this is a bit like a coincidence. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Maybe do you have your own translation of this?
I'm sorry.
Maybe we can take a look at
Oh yes, alternative.
I mean, translation is good, but then we can make it better. One is in active form and another one is in passive. Do you think that is a better alternative compared to the original?
I think passive is not suitable because it feels as if the action is already done. So
Yeah, that's true. But menarik jarum. Siapa yang menarik jarum? Who is menarik jarum? Menghalang maju ke arah puncak. I'm not gonna say this is a bad translation because there is no good or bad translation, but it's quite not up to standard stuff. Menghayun pemacu. So you actually you tore the thing off and you just menghayunkan the pemacu, the thing.
Then what about goyang?
Pemacu digoyangkan. No, when you're saying digoyangkan, I think what you're trying to mention is you're shaking the whole extinguisher, right? The whole thing, right?
it says pemacu.
Pemacu. Or the nozzle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Australian guys.
Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. Menghayun or digoyangkan. What is the motion for goyang? No.
Shake.
No. Shake. How do you shake?
Shake.
Like that, right? Up and down. How do you menghayun? Yes. So menghayun is the most accurate one for
Yeah, I see. So
menghayun.
what is the best procedure to translate semi-technical?
Semi-technical text, the most accurate method of translation that can be used is literal translation.
That
why?
means you have to get the meaning across
Yes.
compared to the grammatical structure.
Yes. Although it may sound funny in the target
It carries
language.
the function across.
Yes.
As long as you understand, it
so
doesn't matter
long-
if it's good or not.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's all for
It's very valid point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it makes
Okay.
sense.
Now that's semi-technical. Okay, what about technical text? What about law text? This is the forte, okay?
That's my forte, my cup of tea. Okay. Now law text. When we say law text, what immediately goes to your mind when we say law text?
Law.
It's hard to understand. And then you use
Very hard structure. Complex language register, yeah.
Complex language register. That's the main issue. That's the main issue for some people. It's too difficult for me to understand because it uses high-level words. Yada yada yada. But the thing is, you have to take into consideration the target reader that the translator was targeting. It's not for laymen. It's for practitioners of the law, for soon-to-be lawyers, right? So let me say this. Yeah. Malaysia uses common law, practices common law. Common law is from Greek, originally from Greek, right? So most of the law terms are written in Greek, translated into English, then translated into Malay. Okay, that is translated into Malay. Now, if you can answer me this, is something wrong. How can you translate from Greek a word that is from Greek that has been translated into English? It hasn't been translated at all. It's been borrowed because the term has no adequate pair. Yes, no exact pair. So when there are no exact pair, like Dr. Gossian someone mentioned in his book, there are several difficulties in translating law text. And one of the aspects of the difficulties is the lexical aspect. The lexical aspect basically means the terms that are used. You can't translate terms when there are no equal pairs. Okay? No equal pairs, then how can you translate it? Let's say, for example, actus rea and mens rea. We all know what it means. We all know what it means, yeah. But the reason why it is not translated into yeah, because it is a term. When you say actus rea, there's only one meaning to it. One meaning, it cannot be anything else. That's the reason why most law texts have a complex language register. Yeah.
But okay, law. Why is law made? Who is it made for?
Okay, it's meant for the people.
For the people. So isn't it important that people understand what the law says? Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think law itself, it uses long sentences because they have unit of truth problem. Unit of truth actually refers to people who create the law creator, they tend to fit all the ideas into one sentence because they scared. If you break down the sentences, what if there's a loss in idea? And in law text, I suggest that maybe we can break it down into smaller parts, also uses punctuation so that the readers won't feel burdened when they read it. And it's easier for them to understand.
This is the second aspect of difficulties in law translation, according to Dr. Bosanso. Okay, now the second aspect is the syntaxis aspect, where the sentences are too long because they use complex sentences, ayat majmuk. And the reason why is, let's say, I think we all have learned, you all know about contract laws, right? Contract laws. Now, the word contract itself, how do you explain the word contract in 2 sentences, very short sentences? It's difficult, isn't it? That's why it requires complex sentences. That's why legal text is known for complex sentences, is known for its, what do you say it's now? Complex language register. It is to explain the terms of law, to explain the acts, to explain the punishments.
Okay, you say all this, but do you have an example?
Coming to you live from Penang Club. Today we have a special guest, so please follow me. Come.
Law text has always been complicated, I would say, and very complex. The reason for this being, our law is taken from common law, and the language that is set, the structure that is set, came from those times. And no one has really made any attempts to correct or simplify the language. The grammar in the law text itself can be very, very complicating for a layman. Okay, a layman would not be able to understand the complexities of the law text because the words that are used, words like pengantunan, amal, these are actually alien words to me myself, because I've not come across these words. I'll be honest with you. If you ask me what's the meaning of pengantunan, I have to think twice, I have to read the whole text, or maybe the whole act to give an explanation. Even the word amang, when we read, the text in totality, we try to figure out what's the meaning of this word. The people who create these words, I do not know what is their background or their, their faculty background or their studies background. Or maybe they are linguists, or maybe they are doing linguistic studies or translation studies. But these words, like you said, can be simplified. There are attempts currently being undertaken to simplify the law language so that the common man can understand the law language. Actually, terms like here, unto, there, to, these are all very simple words, but they can be simplified further, perhaps with the help of linguists, maybe people like you all in translation in time to come. In my personal opinion, of course, when you are translating a law text, or technical text for that matter, definitely, definitely you cannot use the literal translation method. Now, what is happening? Most translators, I noticed in my personal experience, they try to translate sentence to sentence, which is wrong. A good translator will always read the whole paragraph, before translating. And a good translator will always comprehend the paragraph that he or she is going to translate, so that he or she can comprehend the essence and the message in the paragraph before you translate. So when you talk about law text, I would suggest that everybody reads the law text in totality before translating the law text, or before making any attempts to translate. Because many a times, students especially, they translate sentence to sentence, some even word to word. So there goes your loss in translation situation again, and then that's where you get inadequate translation, or over translation, or under translation. But my suggestion is, when you translate law text, it's good to get familiarized with the words, the words that are used in the text itself. Maybe you should get a law dictionary, or some glossary of words, which are available in abundance now. So that will be the more appropriate method, rather than translating sentence to sentence or word to word. So law texts are always very complicated, they are more complex than normal texts, right? So this is the situation actually. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for your time.
Nice day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you very much from our live interview. So just now, Dr. Harjit, a lawyer, philanthropist, a legal advisor, life coach. But anyway, he focused on one point that you said should be done.
I didn't catch that.
You didn't catch that?
I didn't.
You guys catch that? He said that you're not supposed to do literal translation.
Well, the thing is, though, I think my dear friend Dr. Haji is a bit confused.
Confused. He had about 20 to 30 years of translation, and he's a lawyer.
Judging?
No, we're friends. We're friends in real life, so I know what he means when he says don't. When he says don't, he means does sometimes, But the thing is, though, literal translation. If you take a look at it, technical text. The function of the text is what?
I'm sorry, we're playing.
You have to focus on the scopus theory, right? On the scopus theory when translating law text. And there was one thing he said as well. In order for, and I didn't know some of these words, and I had to read a whole chapter or something like that. What does that mean? What does that mean?
You cannot jump into conclusion.
No,
you have to understand the meaning.
It means that when he said, if you were to ask me what's the meaning of pengantunan, which is a law term, the thing they said was I had to read the whole thing. That's why law texts are very long. They use complex sentences. It's to explain in detail. Explain in detail what's going on. Okay, now that I've said that, maybe literal translation isn't the best method to use. Maybe.
He's familiar admitting it. Yeah.
I think what's important is that you have to get the message across, because the impact and the effect of law text on people. What if you mistranslated it?
That is true, and that is why that supports my previous argument that says if a person wants to translate legal text, he has to be an expert in said field.
And you have to focus on your target readers as well.
Yes.
The meaning and the effect is the most important part in translating technical
Where is
text.
it used? When is it used? Who's using it?
Yeah.
So I think we can say that there is no best method of translation in the world, because there is no good and bad translation.
Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, I'll say that.
So the best way is judging at the text and the functions, and also who are your target readers, and then you pick the best approach or the best procedure to translate the text.
Not only your target readers, but you also have to take into consideration the function of the target readers.
Yeah, yes, sure.
Cultural elements.
Right, the cultural elements and how they think, and etc. has a great impact on the method of translation that is supposed to be used. Yes. Okay.
Alright, so time is definitely jealous of us. So this is definitely the end of the show. I would definitely love to invite you guys to come to my Showtime by Ellie again. So thank you very much for coming. Okay, thank you so much. So I will see you guys again next week. Bye.
I feel good.
What is this?
I feel good.
Exploring. Exploring.
Blah 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 blah. Cultural blah. Blah blah blah. Are you blah 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 blah?
Where's my underwear? Where's my underwear?
Fantastic, absolutely amazing, wonderful. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the boys are doing well. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Oh yeah, fantastic.
Let's go. If we just let this boy run, he would do this all day.